Hello everybody, this is Ryan. Welcome to lesson 36 of learning HTML and CSS. In this lesson we'll be learning about hyperlinks in HTML. So a web page without a hyperlink is pretty useless because then it's only a single page. A hyperlink allows you to have some sort of navigation which will go from one page to the next. And this normally involves a menu system of some sort. Okay, so let's look at W3 schools at the HTML tag reference, and the tag that we're going to be focusing on in this lesson is known as the anchor tag, A for anchor, and anchor is just another fancy word for a hyperlink. Alright, so we're going to do quite a few different examples of hyperlinks. Let's just start by looking at some of the properties that a hyperlink can have. The most important one being the Href property. Href should be a little bit familiar to you because we used it when we did the link tag for CSS. It stands for hyperlink reference, and it basically is referencing an external file in this example. So when we add it to an A tag is an inline tag, so it needs to be inside of a block tag of some sort. So we could say something like visit, and you open up your anchor tag, hyperlink reference, and first of all let's do a link to a standard internal document. So I already have a file called lesson35.html, which was my lesson on tables, and then I could say visit our table exercise, or we could say exercise. Okay, so you'll notice the opening A tag and the closing A tag. So the text in between the opening and closing anchor tag is the text that's going to be hyperlinked. So that will be that blue underlined text. So let's see what this looks like. So visit our table exercise. And in my case the link is not blue because I've already visited this link before. But if I had to flush my browser history, then this would turn blue to say that I've never visited it before. Okay, but remember the look and feel of the hyperlink we can change later using CSS. For now we're just interested in the functionality. So if I click on this link, it will take me to the tables exercise I did previously. If I click back, it will take me back to the hyperlinks page. And notice how only the word our and table is linked. You could link more, you could link the whole sentence if you desired to do so. But then you have to put everything that you want to link in between the opening A tag and the closing A tag. And obviously this page needs to exist, because if you put a page that doesn't exist, this is what will happen. Says this web page has not been found, or some browsers will say 404 error, page cannot be displayed. A 404 error simply means the page does not exist. So obviously make sure that you're linking to a destination that exists. Now this is known as a relative path, meaning that this destination is relative to the particular HTML file that I'm busy working on. So where is this lesson36.html file? Currently it's in my HTML subfolder. So relative to lesson 36, where is this hyperlink? Where is this destination? Lesson 35. Well, it's in the same folder. There's lesson 35, there's lesson 36. It's in the same HTML folder. So relatively speaking, I don't have to give it a path here, like a subdirectory. I just tell it the name of the file that it's looking for. Let's pretend it was in a subdirectory called subdirectory. Then I would actually just put the name of the subdirectory in front of it with a /. And then it knows it needs to first go and look into that subdirectory. Remember, there's no such thing as a backslash on the internet. All the slashes are /. And what happens if this file was located in the previous folder? Then I would have to go .. So .. is a way to tell the browser to go back one directory. If you want to go back 2 directories, you could go another dot dot slash. And then to make life easier, rather try and keep all the HTML files together. Okay, so that is a standard link. Now I'm going to do a link to an external website. So I'll say HTTP. You always need to put in a HTTP or HTTPS, depending on what protocol you're looking for. But if you leave that out, the external link will not work correctly. Okay, so I've created another link in a separate paragraph. You could of course make it in the same paragraph if you wanted to. So in my case the links will be underneath each other in separate paragraphs, and this will allow me to link to an external website. So if I click on it, it takes me to Google's webpage. Alright, so remember, external link golden rule, put in the HTTP : / you don't have to put the www. Some websites require it, but most websites you can get away with not having the www. You'll have to test that out for the specific website. The one important thing to mention about the linking to an external site is that it is taking traffic away from your web page. So if I go to Google now, my web page is gone, so they'll be doing other things now and they would have left my website. Whereas I can be clever and use a property called target. So W3 Schools talks about the target property. Specifies where to open the link document. So there's underscore blank, underscore parent, underscore self, and underscore top. So by using underscore blank, we can tell it to open up a new tab or new window. Now watch carefully. I've got 2 tabs open. When I click the link, it opens a 3rd tab with Google, but it still keeps my previous page open in another tab. So big plus to this is that when they're finished doing whatever they were with this external website, they'll close this tab and they'll still see they have your site open and they can continue within your site. Another type of link that we can get is a image hyperlink. Let me show you an image. You should know how to do an image already. It's a src for source. And because my images are in a separate subfolder called pics, I'll put that first. And I'll just take an example. I'll use BG this time around. And I'll give it some alternative text. The alternative text is compulsory, remember, according to the W3C. So don't get lazy and leave it out, otherwise your web page will not validate correctly. Alright, so now if we look at this, I've got an image, little background. But let's say I want to turn this image into a hyperlink that actually takes me to one of my pages. So you know how to do a hyperlink and you know how to do an image. It's just a matter of putting the two together. So instead of text being underlined and being the hyperlink, I want to rather put an image in its place. So I'll just add an anchor tag here. Tell it to go to maybe lesson 34.html. And then I won't close my anchor tag immediately. I'll only close it after the image. And that will make whatever's between the opening anchor tag and the closing anchor tag hyperlinked. So now the image will be hyperlinked. That goes to my bullets exercise when I click on the picture. How do they know that this is actually a hyperlink? Well, look, the mouse cursor changes into a little pointer. Now some older browsers have a very strange thing that happens. It puts, like especially Internet Explorer, the older versions, put like an ugly blue border around a picture as soon as you turn it into a hyperlink. So what we're going to have to do to stop that behavior is in our CSS we do something like this, maybe the other way around, and we'd say border dash width 0 pixels. Okay, so this is maybe the first time you're seeing this notation for a selector. I could simply say IMG, but that would then apply, it would remove borders on all images, and I might not want that. I might actually want some images to have a border. It's just the border that I want to remove on hyperlinked images. So I would then say anchor space image. So what this means is wherever the image tag is a child of the anchor parent, then change the border of that image to 0. Okay. So now we won't see any difference in this browser because it's Chrome, but in Internet Explorer you should, some of the older versions, you will see that border disappear. Okay, then let's do another example of a hyperlink. This time we'll do a mail to link. So this is how you link to an email address, and the mail to protocol is what you use in order to do that. So you say mail to, one word followed by a colon. This is inside the href, and then you put somebody's email address. So this is now instead of using an HTML file. So if I click on this email address, it actually opens up my email program and composes an email address. Composes an email to this address. Okay, you can also set the subject of the email by saying subject equals something. So now when I open up the email compose window, it's already filled in the subject for me. You can even go one step further and fill in the body of the email. You would say ampersand body and put your message in. Okay, there's my message. So let's just revise that. Email address after the mail to colon, that's the compulsory. Optional, you could fill in the subject after the question mark, and then the body of the message by saying ampersand body equals and your message. Now there is one disadvantage to this. Unfortunately, spammers have taken advantage of mail to tags. Remember, one can view the source of any website and see the code, so they write little programs that go through everyone's web pages and look for this word mail to, and then all they do is they grab the email address next to it and they put it into a database and they start sending you spam. So just watch out for this. You can use it at your own risk, or else make sure you choose an email address which you don't mind getting spam on. Okay, so that would be an email address. And then the last type of hyperlink we can create is what we call a fragment anchor. And a fragment anchor looks a little bit different. So what I'm going to do with the fragment anchor is I'm going to create a lot of content on the page to make the page scroll. So I'm going to go to that page we went to earlier, which is lorem or lipsum.com, which has a whole lot of sample text that we can just copy and paste. And then I'm just going to shove that into my document. And then we'll do that over and over again just to make it scroll. Okay, copy, paste, 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 paste. Okay, that should be enough. And then I'm going to have a look at that. So there's all my text, and it does indeed scroll. Now, if we go to a website like Wikipedia, I'm sure you all know that website, famous encyclopedia. You can, if you click on an article, any article, usually these articles scroll quite a bit. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the table of contents that Wikipedia put on the page. So that if you click on, let's say, doctrine, it actually scrolls down to the very same, on the same page, but to a separate section on the page. So if I scroll up again, you'll see I still have that same table of contents. Let's try origins. Now it's jumped me to that origins point on the page. So that's called a fragment anchor. And you can see in the web address, at the end of the web address, there's a hash. And that hash kind of means jump to that specific point in the page. So you'll see that if I click on another item in the table of contents, back to doctrine, do you see how the fragment has changed? That's how the browser knows where to jump within the document. So if we wanted to create something like this, we would start by creating a table of contents. And then instead of linking to an HTML page, we would link to a hash. So I could say, for example, section 1 and maybe another section, section 2. Okay. Right, so you might be familiar with the hash that we used in CSS to create an ID. This is something completely different. It's an HTML ID in a sense. So what you could do is set, let's say, this paragraph, you could give it an ID of sec1. So what you're doing is you're linking this to this. Remember, the hash simply means jump to. So jump to what? Jump to sec1. Where is sec1? Well, sec1 is over here. So the ID, yes, you can add a style sheet to it if you really wanted to, but this is serving a dual purpose because in this case it's used for HTML, not just for CSS. And then here you could maybe, I'll skip another 2 and I'll add sec2. It doesn't have to be a paragraph. You could give an ID to any HTML element on the page. It's normally going to be some sort of heading, like you'll see Wikipedia uses normally an H2 or an H3 to jump to. So let's test this out now. So I've got 2 links. If I click section 1, notice how the page jumped, and look at the URL. It added in a hash sec1 after my HTML file. If I scroll back up, press section 2, it now jumps me to section 2 on the page, which is a little bit further down. So you could have different points that you jump to right throughout the document. Just remember that if your page does not scroll, then what you're doing here with the fragment anchors is pretty useless. It's only for pages that scroll where this actually makes a difference. Alright, and so I'm sure you've all seen this back to the top link that you could also create. It's just also the same principle. You just say hash top back to the top, and that link would take you back to the top. You could maybe give a ID of top to that heading or to the body tag even, so that it knows where to jump to. Some browsers already have this built in, so it knows how to get back to the top automatically, but for those browsers that don't, give an ID of top somewhere at the top of the page. Remember, the hash simply means jump to that particular ID, wherever that ID may be. If you wanted to jump to a particular spot on an external page, you could just put the name of the page followed by the hash, and the point within the page that you need to jump to. If it's on an external web page, you could put the website address of that page followed by the hash and the spot within the page that you want to jump to. But if it's on the same page, you just may as well have the hash by itself as a relative link. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the basic hyperlinks, I just want to show you another one. If you want to allow a user to download a file, like a PDF or an exe or a zip file, you could just put the name of the file that you want them to download, and you could have a download link. So when the user clicks on this hyperlink, the browser will automatically try and download that particular file. So let's see if I can use an example. I will go to my file manager and I'll just maybe pick a document, PDF document, and I'll paste that. Some people like to have a separate folder for downloads, maybe. Paste the file in there, and then obviously we need the file name, so I'm just going to copy the file name, and then in the HTML code it will be under the download subfolder, and that's the name of the PDF document. Okay, so now let's see what happens. See how it downloads the file. Then you can just click on it and it opens up in whichever application you have, in this case PDF viewer. And if it was an exe, it would simply ask you to save it to disk, and you'd save it to disk. If it was an image, it would probably just open the image in the browser. So certain attachments can be opened within the browser if there are plugins to support those particular attachments. Otherwise, the user could always choose to right click on the link and tell it to save link as, in which case it would save the link to their machine, save the file to their machine no matter what plugins are installed in the browser. Okay, let's make the links look pretty. You'll notice by default there are we've got two colors that you can see here. The blue, remember, is for links that you've never downloaded, that you never clicked on before, and the purple here is kind of for links that have been visited before. Then if you click on a link but you don't let go, you'll see it's red. As soon as I let go the mouse, it goes back to what it was. So red is your active link. It shows you which link is currently active. And then there's a last type of state that a link can be in, and that is the hover state. The hover state is when you hover your mouse over the link, what must happen to that link. So let's quickly do the CSS for this. If I do this, that will change the color and the font of all hyperlinks, no matter what the state, whether it's active, visited, hover, or the normal link state. So now all of them are orange, even when I click on it and don't let go. So what we can do then is set the individual states of the link. So we could say visited, for example. So the way you set a state is you put colon and the name of the state. And then we could make that something like red. So now those two I've visited before, this one I haven't. And you could do the same for active, so that when you click on it, it turns to that color. And also you can do the same for hover. Now hover is a state that is the one I normally set, and it will change the look of the link when you hover your mouse over that link. So you can make it do all sorts of things, like maybe you'll change the font weight to bold, or you could even change the background color, and all sorts of different things that you could do when you hover over the link. Okay, just one last thing with hyperlinks. You'll remember previously we learned about tooltips, where you can put a little message that comes up when you hover over that link. So you see it says testing when I hover over that link. So it's sometimes quite nice to have tooltips for different links, then the user knows a little bit more information about that link. And of course one can apply that to images as well. And this ends our lesson in working with hyperlinks in HTML and CSS.